Hi, my name is Tom Trento, and I am your host for the show today. And one of the necessary qualities of an excellent co-host is the ability to move immediately without missing a beat. So, will you open a show, please?
Oh, that's a surprise. Good morning, everybody.
She did it.
Welcome to the United West. And we have a great show, as we always do every morning. And we actually have someone from Jerusalem who's coming on, Jerusalem Jane, for those who have heard of her before. And she moved from the comforts of living in Denmark to go to Jerusalem and live there for the past 5 years. And she provides coverage of what's going on a day-to-day basis within the region and within Israel. So, and that's where her passion was. And that's why we do what we do.
Christian woman.
And she's a Christian woman. But here we are, we're passionate about what we do to speak out against terrorism, against terrorist organizations and jihadists, and also in support of our Judeo-Christian values here in America. And it certainly isn't for money, because we don't make any money, but it's really all comes from passion and feeling that it's our mission, it's our purpose. And you know what, this morning, I talk a lot, but you know what, this morning I was listening on the way in. It was on one of the news stations, and they were talking.
How were you? You were texting me.
Yeah.
While you were driving?
Yeah. No.
That's before you start?
Well, at a red light.
Okay. Red light. Okay.
I had a lot of red lights this morning. Yeah, right. No, I did. I drove.
I get a big text. I go, she should be driving now. What is she doing? Don't text and drive.
No. But
this morning you heard something.
So I was listening to one of the news stations, and they were talking about how in the media is just totally distorting what's going on in the Middle East, and that there's a total disconnect between reality and them creating a new reality that people believe. And there is a message that's going out with regard to this most recent war, that Israel's an oppressor, and that which is the furthest from the truth. They were attacked. They protect their citizens, and that there is a possibility for a two-state solution when you have Hamas, who is declaring the total extinction of the one and only Jewish state in the world. So anyway, it's really ironic. And so what our passion is to bring the truth to our listeners, and also to mobilize everybody to vote according to your values, and also to vote to make sure that there is security for all of us. And that's the primary function of our government, is to provide security.
And we're doing it. I have some good news and bad news. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
You can make a cartoon out of all this,
Yeah, and we have a cartoon
that
you'll see. We have a feature cartoon today. You're going to see in a little bit, short cartoon, like 2.5 minutes. We'll get to that, but I have some good news and I have some bad news. The bad news is that this is our last show for this series on the war. We have other stuff planned we'll tell them about. The good news, for Mark anyways, this is our last show at 9:00 in the morning. Yes. So
yay!
Yeah. Mark's not a morning person. So we had planned just before we got a call on May 10th we were in a meeting with Dr. Ronnie Wexler. He said, and he's usually calm and suave and very in control. He goes, we got a problem in Israel. We went on the air immediately. What's today? The 27th, 17 days. We've been doing this essentially straight. But we had plans before that. We were going to produce a 15-minute, 16-minute, 17-minute little package on some critical issue, Israel-related, Biden-related, whatever we're doing. But then we're going to go back to our 2-minute rant every day. Right. So we're going to go back to that, but we have some special programming that we'll announce later on. We got to raise money for it and all that, but we'll announce it. So today's our last show. We got to leave at 9:30 because Mary up north.
Mary.
She's got like to walk the dog or to cut the grass or something. So our show
I have some important meetings.
She's helping save the world.
I'm working in my local community. Okay.
Okay, that's good.
And for the state of Georgia.
Good. We love Georgia, and I think it was Tim Scott, who met with 6 Black senator from South Carolina, met with 6 heads of corporations, and he asked them, what part of the Georgia law is suppressing people to vote? And none of them, looking at the law, could say, well, this really suppresses people to vote. So, Georgia is passing and did pass major reform legislation, which was needed. So we're happy about that. But let's get into, why don't you introduce our Janie? We'll give her 5 minutes because of the tight schedule. We'll get an
Sure.
update. We'll find out what she's doing too.
Sure. Jane, we're so happy to have you on the show. We call Jane Jerusalem Jane because that's where she lives. She moved from Denmark about 5 years ago, and she's going to give us an update of what is going on in the Middle East, what is going on in Jerusalem and overall in Israel.
Can I just first say that I want to honor you with all my heart and soul for who you are and what you have been doing for these last 17 days. It's incredible. If I had a hat, I would take it off because you're really putting your feet in the ground and you're standing for Israel and you're sharing the truth in a media that's not. And so I really want to honor that. I want to honor you for that because the Jewish people are really looking around saying, goodness gracious, what is it that's coming out of mainstream media? This is not the truth. So what you are doing is just, I have the highest respect and I just want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for, unfortunately, I hear it's the last show. I'm really sad. So I feel honored that you are putting me on the show here today. I have known Tom for several years. He's such a gentleman, and you too, beautiful lady, speaking the truth to the rest of the world. So we still have a ceasefire. It's still holding. Everybody is holding their breath. But one of the leaders from Hamas was out saying that don't you dare touch anything on the Temple Mount. If you go again with the police on the Temple Mount, or if the Arab families in East Jerusalem are being evicted, you will see hell that you have not seen before, and you will see rockets you have not seen before. So we actually had the court postponed another evictions of some family because they don't want to be the reason for the Third World War. So that's what's going on. Hamas is still playing with their muscles, and Israelis are still trying to rebuild and to bury their dead and try to come over all of this trauma that this nation has been through for the last month, and all the lynching and the killing and the terror attacks. Because let's just face it, life is not just normal here in Israel, and it never will be, but you learn to cope. And that's what I've been trying to do, coming from little buttercuppy peach cobbler Denmark that is so peace and quiet and beautiful. And all of a sudden I'm finding myself here on the boots on the ground, just speaking to the world and sharing every time there's a terrorist attack. And like you just said, now 5 years on a journalist visa, just step down in faith, come here on a tourist visa, trying to just share to the world what's going on, because you don't hear it. So they just renewed my visa. It's 1 more year, and I am so happy.
All right, well, here's what we need to do.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
What we need to do is raise some money for Janie. You have a GoFundMe page that's been set up. Is that true?
Yes, it just came out this morning. I'm very, very grateful.
And what can
Yes.
people do to help you out? Trying to raise $18,000 to move. You got to move somewhere else to get your money for the rest of the year. We know you live very modestly. So how do people, if they want to get involved, what do they do?
JerusalemJane.com. It's very simple. It's my webpage, JerusalemJane.com, and you will find the donations, different donation platforms. On that page, you will also find the links out to my social media, all my social media, Jerusalem Jane. Just please go follow me, except Facebook. Facebook is my biggest platform. There are literally almost 200,000 people. So that's where I choose to make my live videos. I will do one later tonight. So it was never about a two-state solution, never about a two-state solution. So that's why my page on Facebook is called Israel One Nation. Please go find it. I know you're on Facebook anyway. That's where I make my videos. That's where I'm sharing the links, the GoFundMe. And yes, I need to find a new home in 1 month. And can I just tell you, it has to be a safe place. There are some people that don't like me so much. But anyway, we can't live in fear. So I need to move. I need to raise a lot of money. My equipment is old. I just need a little bit of security. I don't have a salary. I'm not funded. I never made a dime on any of my 500 videos or my blogs. I am doing this out of a love and a passion and the destiny that God has called me to fulfill. But at the same time, you need to eat a little bit. And so it's not about paying my rent or making me eat, but it's about enabling me to bless Israel. Because what I say, there's not a lot of people saying. So anybody watching, anybody listening, go follow Jerusalem Jane. Please go find my GoFundMe. God bless you so much.
All right, Janie, absolutely. I mean, Susie, if the Israeli government was high security, all this stuff, we know what it's like. If they see the necessity of giving Jerusalem Jane a national press pass that allows her to be in the room with Benjamin Netanyahu and everything else, this is some significant elevation of a little girl from Denmark that came over here. So, and we've seen her in very, very difficult situations. We all get death threats, nothing like she gets. So we want everybody helping her out. What we're going to do now for the rest of the show, I'm going to comment on what she just said. Then we're going to have our feature movie of the day, our feature movie. And we'll bring Barry Shaw on to comment on the feature movie after we see it. It's a 2.5-minute movie, but we'll lead into it. You saw it a couple of times.
Yes.
You can kind of give the overview. But what Jane said is the Hamas is now dictating to Israel what the terms of the ceasefire are. Sheikh Jarrah, with a neighborhood right by the Damascus Gate, you evict those people, which they have every right in the world to do.
Even though they don't pay rent.
Yeah,
and they don't own those homes. Jews own the homes. They bought them and they have the deeds to the homes.
You evict them, rockets like you've never seen. You put Jews on the Temple Mount or police, rockets like you've never seen. What is this? The people have been conquered are now dictating the terms to the Israeli government. Why? Tony Blinken was there yesterday, Secretary of State, and the word is coming out, and Barry's going to comment on this, I'm sure. He dictated the terms to President Biden. Oh, happens to be the same terms that the Hamas are now dictating to Netanyahu. Israel needs a public relations arm.
That's right.
We're going to be that in a very real way in the future, as you'll see. Doesn't mean we agree with everything the Israeli government does, but we do agree that they have a right for a homeland and the right to defend themselves, and that their national security interests are critical to our national security interests. So, Barry, Janie's gone. Jane's there. Barry, take a look at this. Again, why don't you introduce it? It was 8 years ago.
Yeah, so 8 years ago, which actually it didn't change much. The political situation has not changed.
Could have been 800 years ago.
Right,
The same
it doesn't
videos.
matter. It's the same story over and over again. But it's really very entertaining way to understand what is going on in the Middle East within Israel, and also the relationship she has with her enemies, with the jihadis and with Hamas. So we'll play this short cartoon. So everything has to be entertaining.
It's called Terror in School. Terror in School.
Terror in School.
All right. It gets more powerful every time you look at it.
Ductio absurdum.
Yeah, a little cartoon reduced right to the bare facts. Barry Shaw, our good friend in northern part of Central, a little bit north of Jerusalem. Welcome to our last show. We got a few minutes with you. We just showed a little cartoon, Barry. Can you interpret that for our audience, please?
Yeah. First of all, Tom, Susie, I want to thank you for everything you're doing. Even showing a short video like that really puts things in perspective. But let me take it from a kid's cartoon into reality, what is happening today. What you just saw in that cartoon, just consider this. The United Nations Human Rights Council is set to vote this week in order to create a fact-finding mission in order to investigate Israel for war crimes against the Palestinians. This is after 4,300 indiscriminate, unprovoked rockets by Hamas into Israeli civilian targets. It's not them they're investigating, it's Israel. Now, this was brought to the United Nations.
Hey! Cut that out.
Unbelievable. Hey, she's attacking me. She's attacking me.
You have to do it one more time.
I love the water pouring out of the guy. And the two people that come in, the two adults, are the United Nations and the EU. Tell us about the United Nations and their absurdity, Barry.
The juxtaposition of this you should consider. We're talking about the United Nations Human Rights Council.
Right.
If we could be serious for a minute, the United Nations Human Rights Council are going to investigate Israel for war crimes, brought by a petition brought by Pakistan and the Palestinian Authority under the auspices of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation.
Great.
This is what the United Nations is doing for Israel right now, after we've been nearly 2 weeks under unrelenting Palestinian Hamas Islamic rockets. That's one. You've heard of the World Health Organization. They have just singled out Israel this week for being the violator of health rights. And this resolution of the World Health Organization was passed by 82 members of the World Health Organization, including such spiritual bodies of health rights, including Syria. I've got a bit of a list here. Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Turkey, Lebanon, Libya, Pakistan, Qatar, Yemen, and believe it or not, several European countries, including Belgium and Switzerland. This is a situation we, the victim of Palestinian rockets for 2 weeks, are under right now. So this is the cartoon you showed being played out in real time by malevolent world actors who want to take this situation and position the Palestinians as the victims and we as the perpetrators, the Jewish state as the perpetrators. This is a big time thing.
Now, where do these, every time the Hamas, this is like the chicken coop is here and you get the fox and the fox gets the hyenas and the lions, all to guard the chicken, to investigate the chicken coop. Every cycle when the Hamas raises its head, needs to be victimized, needs to raise more money. I think Qatar's sending $500 million.
It's a fundraising tactic.
But these commissions come out of the UN. Where do they go? What do they do? Do they have any impact, or is it just theater?
Well, this one about the war crimes investigation, as I said, there's going to be a meeting on Thursday. Knowing the United Constitution of the United Nations and the members, everything, it's going to pass. They will either do the investigation themselves or they will pass it over to the International Criminal Court and ask the International Criminal Court to investigate Israel for war crimes. Actually, I have an interview with somebody called Nisana Darshan-Leitner, who heads a Israel Law Center. And she, 10 days ago, sent a petition in advance of anticipating this to the International Criminal Court, demanding that the International Criminal Court investigate Hamas for double war crimes. One, of course, is for indiscriminately firing rockets into Israeli civilian targets, and the other one is firing them from civilian targets into land and territory that they totally control. The final thing on that point of view is that, like America, like the United States, Israel is not a member of the International Criminal Court, but the Palestinians are. For some strange reason, the International Criminal Court decided to accept the membership of Palestine. They call Palestine a state. And in a sense, they're right, because the drum I'm beating on is, if you look at the Gaza Strip, it is a Palestinian state. All the accoutrements of a state. Hamas controls totally the Gaza Strip. It controls the border with Egypt in the south and Israel in the north up to the Mediterranean. They control the population. They have their administration in the Gaza city, which you can call their capital. All the accoutrements, if you like, of statehood. So yes, Palestinian is Palestine, Hamastan, call it whatever you like. And it's a member of the International Criminal Court. And it's the International Criminal Court, because of jurisdiction, is duty bound to investigate any claims of war crimes against one of its members.
Unbelievable. All right, Barry, as you know, this is our last show on the war. We were planning other media, and this has been day and night for us, day and night, as you can imagine. So we're concluding the show. We will be back to you because we have other programming, and the little short cartoon you saw. We're going to be producing all kinds of media. We found another little video. I think you found it. Again, this is from 7 years ago. The other one was from 8 years ago. We're going to close this show, with this little video, a little rap video by a Orthodox guy. We're good. Why don't you, because after the video is over, we're done. Why don't you say goodbye? You got about 30 seconds to say goodbye.
Everybody,
we're
just
good, Mark.
wanted to say, thank you for your support, and continue to give us support, because we will be moving into other type of subject matter that have to do with Israel, the Middle East, and with America and Judeo-Christian values. So please continue with your support, because we are not going away. We're coming back. So we ended with the war, but we're moving into other subject matter.
And now a little rap video by an Orthodox Jew. If you support Hamas, you're a fool.
Criticize Israel, that's cool, but if you support Hamas, you're a fool. Unless you want radical Islamic rule and stockpiles of rockets at your kids' school. Remember, they send their own people out strapped with suicide bombs blowing up in their lap. You think they seek peace? That's a bunch of crap. They just want to wipe Israel off the map. Let me start off slow so you don't get lost. Palestinians are not the same as Hamas. Though they may live in the same location, Hamas is a terrorist organization. They might call themselves freedom fighters, but they're just like the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, using lethal force against Arabs, Jews, and anyone else who disagrees with their views. Due to their violence, they have been banned from Jordan, Canada, and Japan, the whole EU, plus the UK, Australia, Egypt, and the USA. But in Israel, the situation is harder. They kidnap Israelis and use them to barter. If one murders Jews, he's raised as a martyr. Just take a look at Hamas's own charter. They want Islam controlling the whole Middle East. 2 states don't interest them in the least. So tell me how Jews are supposed to make peace with the enemy who just wants to see us deceased. You want to criticize Israel, that's cool, but if you support Hamas, you're a fool. Unless you want radical Islamic rule and stockpiles of rockets at your kid's school. Remember, they send their own people out strapped with suicide bombs blowing up in their lap. You think they seek peace? That's a bunch of crap. They just want to wipe Israel off the map. Gazans are living in poverty, but Hamas just went on a building spree of underground tunnels through which they plan to unleash attacks on Israeli land. They used 80,000 tons of cement, a valuable resource which could have went to development of new apartments to help Palestinians who can't pay the rent. Iran has given them hundreds of millions, but they shoot it all at Israeli civilians. Their rockets get blown by the Iron Dome while their own people are starving at home. And it's even worse on the battlefield where they wield civilians like human shields. Israel uses weapons when its people are threatened, but Hamas uses people to protect its weapons. If I was from Gaza, I would be pissed, but to be honest, I wouldn't resist, cause Hamas's rivals all wind up dead, tortured before they get shot in the head. So you wanna criticize Israel, that's cool, but if you support Hamas, you're a fool. Unless you want radical Islamic rule and stockpiles of rockets at your kid's school. Remember, they send their own people out strapped with suicide bombs blowing up in their lap. You think they seek peace? That's a bunch of crap. They just wanna wipe Israel off the map.
All right. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
If you wanna criticize Israel, that's cool, but if you support Hamas, you're a